Hey, welcome back. Secret House Against the World. Underground, independent, avant-garde, weird leftist album discussions. You guys recognize me and Jet. You know, we're the Tokyo-based cats. You may have seen us on such shows as this one or the Mega Late Show. I don't know. I'm just going to get into this one rambling. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Consider joining our Patreon. That helps us get more train rides out here in Tokyo and whatnot, and also to support artists, albums who we review, because we do like to do that, you know, spend some money on some independent art. Today we are reviewing a collaborative album between Pioneer 11 and Rhys Langston. The title is To Operate the System. It is an 8-song 26-minute album that dropped July 26th. It looks like it's mixed by the legendary DJ Daddy Kev, legendary Daddy Kev. I just saw him out here with Rory a couple months ago with Rap Ferreira. Always a pleasure, but he's incredible. And I think this also came out on like PAL Recordings, which is Passion of the Weiss.
Right. Yes.
Some of the best writing hip hop. Shout out to them. So what we like to do when we review an album from an artist that we have not discussed on the show before is to let you guys know how we know those artists. So first, let me just say Rhys Langston is a wildly inventive, LA-based and born and raised MC artist, poet, writer. He's got hella releases. Pioneer 11 is an LA-based duo of Brian Gomez and Alex Hastings. They are named after NASA's 1973 space probe, and they make kind of spacey, cosmic, IDM-esque jams in the vein of like Manitoba, Caribou, maybe a Clark, maybe, you know I'm talking about, maybe even like a towards a Daedalus at times. But they also create some interesting rap covers with their sound. Mm-hmm. Like they've got a Big Pun rap cover and also an O3 Greedo cover. I am not familiar with them whatsoever. This is my first time hearing about them, my first time listening to their music. Are you familiar with Pioneer 11?
Nope, first time.
Okay.
Rhys Langston I am familiar with.
Okay, yeah.
I'm probably a casual fan, but yeah, I'm familiar with his work.
I became aware of Rhys a few years ago. I jammed his aggressively ethnically ambiguous album quite a bit. Language Arts Unit, Stalin, Bollywood, which I didn't care for that much. He's pushing kind of like a post-punk type of sound on that, but also Grapefruit Radio. I've been wanting to do a review of his work on this channel for the last few years, but we just never got to it.
Right.
I also kind of wanted to make sure that when I reviewed one of his albums, is one that I really liked, because I assumed Spade was not going to like it at all.
Sure.
So, shout out to L Spade. He's back in America right now for a bit. But one thing I do like about Rhys is that he's one of those artists like a Chris Crack who has some of the best song and album titles in the game.
Yes.
Here's a short list of a few that I personally enjoy.
I get it.
Hose on My Dick Because I Look Like a Drawing of the Prophet Muhammad.
Jesus.
Discovery of the Tubman Boson. Decolonize Physics. Nebbish, Frederick Douglass. Postmortem, Shuckin'. Prenatal, Jiving. Incredibly Black and Extremely Eccentric, In Oregon. And he is a very interesting artist. Let's get right into the album. Should we
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel positive about this record. I will admit out of hand that it's not my favorite release of the year by any stretch. I think there's a lot of really interesting ideas going on here musically. I was, as some of you know, staring at my phone for the first 2 minutes because I was desperately trying to find an artist that this like evoked to me, and I just couldn't for the love of me find it. But it does really remind me of like this certain era of like late 90s pre 9/11 alternative MTV,
right,
but slightly too weird for MTV music, like a Space Hog or a Babylon Zoo, right, or even like Beck,
or like a Pentium processor commercial with the spacesuits and multiple color joints.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It was very evocative of that particular space and time, and I think it's very successful in that respect.
To build off of that thought a little bit, I kind of felt the same. I didn't necessarily tie it to like pre 9/11, but that makes sense to me because this is kind of like an off-world pop album to a degree. It's a sci-fi world without the kind of the demarcations, like the late stage capitalist dystopian aspect of the future. It's while Rhys is saying some really interesting things and critiques about perhaps he's saying these things, he's very dense and hard to get. It's more like a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy curious world than it is. It's more Deltron 3030 than it is The Cold Vein.
Yes.
And there's a happiness, there's a warmth, there's a kind of I don't know. It's like a colorful alien planet. It's like Avatar if they didn't have like the big black fucking 6-legged panther beast. You know what I mean? Like
right.
It's very beautiful and colorful and interesting. I think that the musicality on it, the guitar playing and kind of the drumming, it creates a very unique sound that I have a hard time placing as well, particularly with the way that Rhys approaches not only like the lyrics on this, but kind of the rhyming style. He's wildly inventive, and sometimes even when it sounds as though he's going towards like a more conventional orthodox flow, the things that he says and the way that he kind of does it, there's like it's unorthodox. It's a little bit strange. That gives it a kind of timeless, a very difficult like placement on things. Now I think that for me, all right, I was on one the other night. I forget what I was doing, but I texted you 2 songs in as I was listening to this, and I was like, this Pioneer Rhys album is kind of tremendous. Now, I really do very much enjoy those first 2 songs. On My Own and Amber Deception.
Yes.
I really, really like those. And there's kind of a weird, strange pop aesthetic to it. But when we get to The Walls Are Melting, it is upbeat and dancey, but the repetitive chorus of The Walls Are Melting started to wear on me a little bit, considering how intricate and how unique Rhys is usually with things. And sometimes it works really well, their approach on this. And other times I'm not really feeling the end result. And it's only 8 songs, and I'd say I probably like 6 of them. So I'm not saying that I like 6 of them. I love about 3 of them.
I think I'm about on the same page, because when I first started listening to it with your message in mind that you had sent me, I was like, oh shit, yeah, this is tremendous. Like On My Own, Amber Deception are really, really dope.
Really
and then
good.
the walls are melting. I think it's, and this is a problem I also have with like My Kitty Left on a Rocket That Launched. Fun story, but like I don't know if the hook, if you can call it that, the central refrain really sticks with me. I was kind of like, there's the part of me that's like, maybe the quality of the delivery, like the singing and the mixing isn't to the kind of sheen, the mirror shine that you expect from like a poppier piece, but also maybe the repetition kind of detracts from the abstraction and the weirdness of the record that I do enjoy a lot.
That was kind of an issue for me. Like there is it's a really delicate balance that they're doing here, where it's like extremely forward and progressive, but then on the flip side, it gets very kind of layman and just very straightforward, simple. And the kitty. My Kitty Left on a Rocket That Launched. It's a very fun, interesting story about a cat that leaves on a rocket. And you contrast that very, like, it should be a great balance of, like, here's something very simple, but on DoorDash the Basilica, you have no idea really what he's getting at on it. And I kind of, at times, I just got kind of like, okay, the simpler aspects of this is where I'm kind of getting lost. Particularly, I gotta say, like, I'm hyper focusing on it. It's not that big of a deal, but I really, the second time I heard The Walls Are Melting, I was like, I do not like this song. It's not because there's a verse on there for a guy and the lyrics are fine, but that repetitive, The Walls Are Melting, maybe that's not music for me.
I kind of feel the same about I just the actual refrain, it's like the melodic refrain, dun 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 dun, wasn't particularly interesting to me. And The Walls Melting, like, on paper I like the idea of the repetition of this phrase, because, you know, the walls melting is like the first kind of typical image we get of like a drug trip going
Yeah.
out of hand, right?
Yeah.
Oh, the walls are melting again,
Yeah.
right? So I feel like I should really, really like that, but I do think that the actual melodic content of the song isn't strong
Yeah.
enough to hold up that to elevate that
Sure.
hook.
That's kind of where I'm at on it.
That's the only skip on the album for me, though.
Also, I'm a big hater of like pop, so when it gets like that, sometimes I get kind of
Well,
like this.
I like my pop. I'm a big
Yeah,
I'm a pop
I
fan.
almost-
I enjoy the craft that goes into making good pop.
Yeah.
I do think that the more earwormy the more earwormy elements of this album come across as more grating than they do catchy. It almost reminds me a little bit of the Talk joint on the Atmosphere record.
Okay.
Talk to me.
Yeah.
Talk to me. Which is to say, like, still stuck in my head. I don't know if I will grow to love it
Right.
as you do with like a good pop hook. I don't want to get too bogged down in like
Yeah.
the negatives though, because I do all in all quite enjoy this record. I think it has a really interesting palette of sounds. The fact that it can be extremely hip hop while also sometimes pulling back pulling the rug out, and you're like, oh wait, this is like a weird alternative rock record. Is a lot of fun. I do like how implaceable it is in terms of time. As I said, it reminded me of something from like late 90s MTV or like early 2000s Adult Swim kind of, weirdness, while also being quite modern and having like some, pretty cool like synthesizers and kind of sounds going on. And I enjoy picking apart some of the lyrics on here. I think lyrically it's quite an interesting record. That said, not my favorite Rhys Langston. I
mean, like, what I like about Rhys is that he's an artist that kind of stretches himself and does all types of different things.
Yes.
It's very difficult for me to explain what type of artist he is. I could tell you, like, for him, there's almost like a deep academic denseness, I should say, to his rhyming that is different than a Bus Driver or an A$AP Rock even.
Yes.
And it feels much more kind of abstract in a way. But on this album, what I found was wonderful too, if you go to the Bandcamp, all the lyrics are there, and I'm a big fan of that these days, especially with some difficult, it's hard to hear some of the words that are saying, but he's, I found myself just thinking for several minutes about some of the lines that he says and trying to figure out, like, what is he trying to get off with that? But, in my own head, I can kind of place it to a lot of things. I know Spade doesn't necessarily like that approach, but for me, like, a gig economy of integers where the leather off Audio Technicas lint on the hard candy paper bowl, I don't know what he's saying most of the time, but he is one of the most interesting rappers out right now, and I'm looking forward to be quite honest, I'm looking forward to another rap album from him, like a bars type of, like, not to say that
there are bars on here, but it's not like
this is a
collaborative
rap project that is focused on something else. I want to hear some sample bass, him, and I'll be checking out both of these artists more. I'm not completely on board with Rhys as an art. Like, he's not. I wouldn't say that he's one of my 10 favorite right now, but he is an artist who I think is. I'm looking forward to his trajectory, and I think that it's very possible for him to move up on my kind of ever-changing list of personal favorites at any given time, because he is something else. He really is just unique, super unique.
Word.
Well, what are your favorite songs on this one?
Sorry, let me pull up the track list real quick.
I've got On My Own, Amber Deception, and maybe To Operate This System, or The Story of Three Surveyors.
I would have also gone with the first two tracks and maybe DoorDash the Basilica.
Okay, yeah. A vacancy sign glows behind the neon eardrum. The levers and pulleys operate a golden zero sum. What does it all mean? But that's the fun part. Secret House Against. I want you guys to go check out our guy at Caltrops Press. Some of the best writing And also go check out Passion of the Weiss, man. Jeff Weiss, he's got one of my favorite album reviews ever. He did like well, I forget what they call him on Pitchfork, but he re-reviewed Supreme Clientele.
Right.
And man, it's some of the best writing. Ghostface, that album is incredible. Check them out. Support independent underground, hip hop, read theory, fucking read in general. Yeah, you know what it is.
Look after your health. Go to the gym.
Yeah, consider joining our Patreon as well. We got some cool people on there.
Give us money.
Yeah.
Give somebody else money. Keep your money. I don't give a fuck. If you're a billionaire, I don't know, jump off something very tall.
That's tight.
Yeah. Secret house.
追い投げ、背負い落とし、浮き落とし、払い腰、跳ね腰、大外刈り、小外刈り、小外掛け、大外車、内股、内股すかし、きびす返し、巴投げ、俵返し、カニバサミ、山嵐、浮き技、小内刈り、大内刈り、肩車、横車、釣り込み腰、袖釣り込み腰、払い釣り込み足、ツバメ返し、抱き別れ、